Thank you, everyone, for coming here today for our Zoho CRM webinar. Now, today we'll be discussing some of Zoho's newest features that can hopefully impact and improve and streamline your business. Now, if any of the features we see today are new to you, then that's great. You're in the right place. Hopefully, we learn something together that you can then take out of this, whether it's implementing it yourself or reaching out to our wonderful team of account managers to help guide that discussion and see how we can improve your CRM. So my name is Grayson Luce. I'm a technical sales associate here at Top Line Results. So what that means is I support both the tech and sales teams on any of their demonstrations, trainings, and customer projects across Dynamics, Zoho, and HubSpot. I'm also involved in our internal project, Symphony Sync, which is an integration tool. And I've been involved in that development, customer support, and some content creation. Now, as for what the agenda of what we're going to be talking about today, we'll take a little bit of a look at the role-based homepage sharing, as well as how you can add related fields from a lookup, as well as filter what fields lookups are looking for. We'll also take a look at global picklist sets and how you can add colors for your picklist options. We'll then take a look at pinning columns in list views, similar to freezing a pane in Excel. We'll then take a look at record locking, Zoho Cadences, and Zia email custom intents. Let's jump right into Zoho. So right away, the first thing I want to talk about is our different home pages. So by default, Zoho does provide some home pages for you, including the classic view, manager's homepage, as well as each user's personal homepage. But Zoho also allows us to create custom homepages that we can then share with specific profiles and roles internally. So for instance, here we have the sales member homepage that helps, give us some information about each user's leads, any leads that have been unread, as well as their tasks over the next couple days, and amount by lead source. We've also created this account manager's home, as well as the sales leader's home. Now, this sales leader is more dedicated to giving an overview of the system, as well as the users under them. So we can see all the open deals in the pipeline. We can see our users and their target revenues. We can see the open amounts by pipeline stage, as well as our overall organization revenue target. Again, home pages can be fully customized to fit specific needs, whether it be of a person or a manager who overviews multiple people. Now, each of these home pages can be shared with either profiles or roles. So what I'm going to show here is a little bit of the back end, where we can see all the home pages we have in our system. So if we take a look at this account manager's homepage, we can click here to edit properties, and what we'll see is our sharing rules. So here we see all the roles in our system, and with that we can select which roles we'd like to see, or we'd like to have see this specific homepage. We can also take a look at all the profiles we have in our system, for instance, administrator and standard, and add these profiles as well to be able to view the homepage. Now, each role and profile can have up to 5 home pages for each, for a grand total of 10 home pages. Again, here you'll be able to see exactly who this home page is being shared with. The next thing I'd like to talk about is some of the customizations we can make related to fields. Specifically, we're going to look at this account lookup field. Now, this is on the deal record, and we do have the account name here, which is looking up to that account. But say we wanted to add a little bit more information about that account that we think is pertinent to have on this deal. Now, we can go about adding that relevant information directly from the account record by clicking here in the three-dot menu, and then clicking either Add or Edit Fields of a Lookup module, depending if you have any that are already existing. For our case, we already pulled over this account industry, but if we have not yet added any related lookup fields, we can do so again from that menu. For now, we'll take a look at our lookup fields, and we can see that we've already pulled the industry directly from that accounts module. If we'd like to add a new field, we can choose any of the lookup fields from that account, such as potentially we want to pull in that billing city, and then we can either add that as a new field directly to this deal record, or we can map it to an already existing field. Once that's been added, we'll see that new field pop up just below our account name lookup. But just like any other field, we can drag and drop that field to wherever we feel is most pertinent on the record. Once we've decided where we want to place it, we can click Save, and we can view those changes directly on the record. Now, while we're back here, I also want to take a look at our global sets for any Picklist options. So we can find our global sets, for instance, lead source, now, typically, option sets are specific to each record. So we could have this lead source option set on our lead, but we could also have this lead source option set on our deal record. Now, by default, these two are not connected at all. If we were to add or remove an option from either of these, it would not be reflected in the other. However, Zoho does allow us to either use an existing global set or convert any of our options into a global set. Now, what this allows us to do is keep one consistent list between every area in our system. So whether I'm on the lead or the deal, if I'm looking at this lead source list, I'll be able to see all the same options. And even if I make one change in one area, that change will also be reflected in every other option set. Now, the next thing I want to take a look at is going to be how we can add colored options to our pick lists. For this, let's jump over to our accounts. Now, on an account record, if we go to any of our option sets, and for this instance, I'm going to go to industry here, and again, click Edit Properties. At the bottom here, we have the option to enable color for our pick list options. What this does is adds this little color bubble next to each of our pick list options. And here we can either use the default colors that Zoho gives us or change it to any custom color. We do have some presets. However, you are able to go into a full RGB color space to choose exactly what color, or by using the hex code, you'd like to use for each option choice. Now, I do want to mention that the colors are specific for each module, so even if you do use a global option set, your colors may differ based on which module you are on, so you'll need to set that manually. But once you've added your colors, you can click Done to confirm, and then you'd save the record. And then we can either go to the list view or the account to view how that color is coming into our system. So here we have our accounts list view, and we can see now that this industry field is color coded based on whatever industry is on the record, where retail is one color, professional services are another, and power and electrical is on a third. If we were to click into any of these records, we'll also be able to see that colored field directly on the record in the industry section. So we can see here, this industry field also retains that color. Now, while we're back on this list view, another feature I want to show is the ability to pin columns in any list view. Now, if you're familiar with Excel, this is very similar to freezing a specific column. So no matter how we scroll on this list view, we'll always see that column at the very start. This is great, especially if you want to pin something like the account or lead names. So even as you're scrolling over here on the right, you're still able to easily reference which account is which. After you're done, you can simply choose this column options dropdown and then unpin the column. Now, you don't need to just pin the first column. You can also pin any other column, such as industry. Now, it is important to note that you can only pin one column at once. So if we already have industry pinned and we wanted to pin an account name instead, we would have to first unpin industry and then repin the account name. The next thing I want to touch on is how we can go about locking records. Locking records is specifically to restrict further changes to the data, and records can be locked either manually or automatically based on certain criteria. So users may want to lock records manually if they realize they're close to finalizing a deal and they don't want to change any of the details of, say, the quote. Now, records can also be locked automatically, such as if a stage hits a certain point. And these locks can only be unlocked by either the original locker or a role such as administrator. Now, in this case, you could use locking records as a means of approval. Once a record has hit a certain stage and needs to be approved before it can continue, you can automatically lock the record once it moves to that stage and have a specific role, such as administrator, have to manually unlock the record and move it to the next stage for you. Now, if you'd like to manually lock a record, you can do so on the specific record. For instance, here we have a deal, and we want to lock this deal because we don't want any changes to be made by any other users. We can lock this deal by in the top right-hand corner, clicking this More Options button, and then clicking Lock. What this will do is pop up this little text box asking us for the reason we're trying to lock this record. And then we can then hit lock. Now, as the record owner, I am able to unlock this record, but any other profile users will not be able to make any edits to this record. All users will see this locked icon up here in the top right-hand corner. We can also click Details to view a little information about the lock, including potentially any fields that are still editable, regardless of if the lock is in effect or not. Once we're ready to unlock, we can just click this Unlock button. Now that this record has been unlocked, either you or another salesperson can continue to edit this record as normal. The next thing I'd like to touch on is cadences. So if you're not familiar with cadences, these are a series of specific targeted response-based follow-ups. Now, these cadences are usually created based on your business goals and help to streamline and make sure all your lead follow-ups in this example are following the same sort of pattern. Now, these cadences can either be manually enrolled or can be enrolled based on inclusion in a custom view. So you could set up a filter, for instance, all leads or all deals that are in Wisconsin, and you might want to assign specific follow-ups based off of if they're in Wisconsin or not. For this instance, we'll look at this manually enrolled cadence we've created here. And we can click the Options menu and then Edit. The first thing you'll notice about these cadences is that they're in this sort of hierarchical view, with our first step deciding our next steps based on the original outcome. So by enrolling a lead in this cadence, we will immediately send out an email. And we can use any of our email templates, as well as set who we want this email to come from. We can also set how soon after they're enrolled in this cadence do we want this chain to go through. Now, for emails, we can set our next steps based on how that email was interacted with. Was it clicked on or replied to? Was it just opened? As well as if the record was or the email was bounced, just sent, or unsubscribed. Now that we have this first lead, and we assume that that lead is clicked or replied to that email, we can then continue on with the next steps in our cadence. In this case, now that they've clicked on it and we've called them, we'll take a look at what happens with that call. If the call doesn't go through and has been canceled, we can move on to the next step and schedule a meeting. Or if the call was completed, we'll schedule a meeting automatically. Our other option here is if that email was not clicked on or replied to, but simply just opened, we can send out a lead follow-up call, and then based on that call, we can determine if we want to follow up with the scheduling a meeting. Now you'll notice when I hover over any of these options here in our cadence, we'll see the exact chain it took to get to this point in the cadence. So in order to get to this step of scheduling a meeting, they would have had to respond to the email, either clicked on it or replied. From that phone call, they would have had to cancel the phone call. And that second phone call we got, they would have had to have a completed phone call for us to get this task of scheduling a meeting. Now, once we've made our changes to this record, we can republish it. And then by clicking back in, we can view the reports of everyone who's been enrolled in this cadence. For instance, here, we can see our past history of emails. So we've sent 2 emails, and of those, 1 is bounced so far. We can also see exactly which email templates have been used and some more metrics about the emails. We also have the ability to select what date filter. So do we want to look at the entire history of the cadence, the last 90, 30, or 7 days, or even a specific custom range of dates? We're also able to do the same for any tasks or calls, as well as view a funnel of each of the steps in our cadence. Again, cadences can either be manually enrolled or enrolled based on the inclusion of the view. So next, let's take a look at how you can manually enroll a specific record into a cadence. Again, cadences are specific to a record type, whether it be leads, deals, accounts, or contacts. So in this case, we're going to take a look at a specific lead. Kayla here has already been enrolled in a cadence, and we can see that by looking at a related list over here on the left-hand side and at our cadences. We can see here that she was enrolled in this webinar example cadence that we had just seen automatically. Her cadence status is outgoing. She's enrolled in the cadence, and the last follow-up response was that her email had bounced. Now that email we saw, we can also view in our emails section over here. So any activities that occurred in relation to the cadences will appear in either your emails or your activities. In this case, we can see that info template basic email that we sent out at the start of the cadence is returning as bounced. Now, if you'd like to enroll a new person into this cadence, you can do so by making sure you're on whatever specific module the cadence is for. In the top right-hand corner, going to More Options, and then Add to Cadence. Here, you're able to choose from any of your currently active cadences for that specific module. We can then click on the cadence, and then click Add to Cadence to add that user. Now we can see here that Michael has been added to this webinar example cadence. And here we can also view that history of what's been going on with the cadence. Again, any emails or activities will be recorded here in the last follow-up response, but also later down in the record, such as in emails and your open and closed activities. Now, the final thing I want to touch on today is our Zoho ZIA email custom intents. So in general, email intents is a way that Zoho ZIA, which is Zoho's custom AI, identifies the intent at which a customer has emailed you. Now, by default, Zoho does provide you some out-of-the-box intents, such as, is this intended for a purchase? Is there email about a complaint? Or is it just a query? Or some sort of request? Now, these are great out-of-the-box intents. However, these might not cover all of your use cases. If you'd like to expand on this list, we can also make use of these custom intents. Now, custom intent allows you to define customized email intent classifications specific for your organization. And with this, you can either use email samples or you can use specific keywords to train ZIA. Here, we have this custom intent we've created called feedback. And this specific example is for when a customer provides any feedback in their email. And we can take a look at this by clicking Edit. In this case, we're looking to create this without using any existing email records, and we're using some specific keywords, up to 5, to determine what ZIA should be looking for to make this decision that this email is related to feedback. In this example, we use the keywords of suggestion, opinion, approval, recommendation, and evaluation to determine if something is related to being feedback. Again, once you have this feedback and custom intent, or really any other custom intent, you're able to toggle them on and off, view the accuracy of how ZIA determined the intent, as well as view the overall emails that have been included with this intent. Thank you so much for coming today.